Right, how you going guys? So welcome back to NZ Motor Outlet Customs. A little bit closer. Hey, just watching this morning. I watched Dan from DD's Speed Shop, and I wouldn't normally do this kind of video, but some of the stuff he's getting that red or that convertible that he made there last year. He's giving it a repaint, and he wants to paint it red, which is fine. But he's obviously not too worried about the finish as long as it's reasonable. But he had sprayed some high build primer up, 2-pack. I assume it was 2-pack. But yeah, he was block sanding it out, and he's just using a short block, which, okay, yeah, sure, I can understand that he doesn't really want a showroom perfect finish, but if you're going to use a short block like that sort of thing, it takes just as much fucking effort to use one of those and get a shitty, well, I wouldn't say shitty, but a very, very average result is what it does to use something that's that kind of length. You know, like that's, and like I know there's a Dura block that's twice this length. This is what I've got, or I've got my Lucky block, acrylic blocks that I made. Even if you're doing a rough job, the longer the block you can use to block out a car in primer before you're going to go put some colour on it, the better. You know, smash it back a couple of times with this over top of your wide build, and whether it's going to be just a fairly rough beater or whatever, if you're using a short block, it follows all the humps and hollows, where if you use a long block, it doesn't follow them as bad, and you end up with a better result. Plain and pure and simple. It was sort of griping a little bit, just the way he was doing it. You know, like and I know he's got long blocks there. I've seen him use them. So yeah, if you're going to sand primer, use the longest block you can in the area that you can. And like those 57s got big, long, I wouldn't say flat fenders, but you know, they're fairly big, long, sweeping. You can use a long block all day long on the bloody thing, you know, in the end, you're going to end up with a fairly half reasonable result if it's just going to be a daily driver and you want it to look reasonable from, you know, 20 feet away, 10 feet away, whatever, you know, it's going to look half decent. If you use the short block, it's just going to follow every hump and hollow on it, and it's going to look half-ass crappy, which is fine. But you know, like, it's a 57 Chev. I know it's turned it into a convertible, but for a little bit of extra or no extra effort to use a longer block, the longest block you've got that you can put sandpaper on and block it out. There's no more, if you know, it's bugger all more effort to go from a short block to the longest block you've got. So that's my first gripe with the video that he just put up. And that's personal preference, but it's kind of a no-brainer. You know, if you're going to block something out, use the biggest block you've got, and it doesn't matter whether it's going to be a show car or this car you just want to flick a coat of paint on to make it half decent. The longer the block you got, and the more you block it out, the better it's going to be. Like, even if you just block it out a couple of times or something like that, it's going to be way better than it was if you used a short block. And you're going to end up with a better result, you know. Second thing he did, okay, he was using, I guess it was in some enamel or whatever, like acrylic paint, that's like a industrial paint, tractor paint, whatever it was for tractors. That's industrial paint, but it's 2-pack. But he was putting hardener in, and I suggest with any fucking paint job you do, I don't care whether it's just plain old enamel, it's got nothing in it, or whatever, or if it's acrylic and it's got no hardener in it, you know, just normal old base coat, clear coat, or whatever you're painting, or if it's anything you're going to put a hardener in, wear one of these fucking things. Wear a mask and make sure it's got the right filters on it. Because he was just wanted to test the paint, the mixing ratio, and he flicked it around the insides of the doors. As soon as that hardener gets in your lungs, it will fucking harden up inside them. It mightn't affect you much for the first time, but if you do that, and I know I've seen them use masks a lot, but you've only got to do that, you know, over 10 years. You might, if you do that a dozen times or 20 times, oh, just flick this bit of paint on. If you don't use a mask and you're using hardener, that shit goes in your lungs, hardens up in your lungs, hardens the tissues in your lungs, and next thing you'll get 10 years down the track and you fucking can't breathe, and you're on a respirator and you're on oxygen, and the cars that you've been working on for the last 10 years you want to go and enjoy and drive when you're in your, like I presume he's in his mid 30s, I'm guessing. By look, you know, he might be almost 40, I don't know his exact age, but I know he's in his 30s there somewhere. So if he gets 10 years down the track and he's been doing the same thing, you know, gets the odd paint job, oh shit, you know, I just want to test this paint out and flicks it around the doors and whatever, and he's not wearing a mask and not changing his filters regularly, he's going to get into his late 40s, like my age now, and he'll be on oxygen and won't be able to enjoy the cars he's been building. So yeah, do not spray paint without a mask on. Rattle can's probably one of those borderline things. It's kind of okay, it hasn't got hardener in it, but you know, you probably should be, but you know, I know I do, you know, for just little bits and pieces, flick a little bit on. It's probably okay, but not really, if you know what I mean. But if you're going to spray anything with a fucking hardener in it, I don't, you know, whether it's meant to have hardener in it or not, put a mask on with the right filters, otherwise you're going to be 10 years, 15 years down the track. In your mid 40s or early 50s, want to enjoy the cars that you've built and still want to build more cars, and you won't be able because you'll be bedridden on oxygen. So yeah, don't do it. So yeah, that was probably my two biggest gripes. The blind block thing is probably not really much of a thing, you know, but if you've got them, use them, because it takes, you know, not much more effort to push a long block, you know, and that's a short long block, you know, the longer ones, double ones, that length, or that one there, which is about the same length as those two put together, you know, anything like that sort of thing, or something that long, which is about the same length as what those big long Durablocks are, which are 24 inches or whatever they are. You know, it doesn't take much more effort to push something like that than it does a short block, and even if it is a beater, it's going to be a nicer beater than, you know, and it doesn't take much more effort. So yeah, if you block them back, primer to paint, long block, and if you're going to paint anything, basically any paint, wear always respirator, you know, the odd rattle can's probably not going to do too much, but anything with a hardener in it, wear a fucking mask or a respirator, whatever you fucking want to call it, because it just, yeah, it's stupid. That shit will fuck you up. End of video. Like, I quite like the guy. I'd like to meet him at some point, you know, because I am going over to Minnesota Outlaw Customs at some point, whether it's visit, holiday, whatever, live there permanently. Those guys, like Dan, Brent from Half-Assed, Sobering Boys, and the Penny Boys are only 3.5, 4.5 hours away, depending on which one you want to go to. They're all in that Winnipeg area, like Dan's in Winnipeg and all the rest of them are scattered around the outside of it. You know, close enough to the type thing. Yeah, like I want to go see those guys, and I don't want to see any of them in, you know, in 10 years or 15 years time in a frickin' hospital bed or bedridden like an oxygen because they never wore a mask, spraying 2-pack paint. that shit will just fuck you up. Even the dust from sanding is not good for you. Like I know from spreading fertiliser at different points, you know, and didn't have probably the right masks at the time. You know, it's affected me now, and I definitely wear one most of the time, because I know when I don't wear one, when I'm doing a little bit of dry sanding, and it's only a small things. Like I know a couple of times I've freaking gone home and gone, shit man, I should have worn my mask, because I can feel it. You know, I'm 48 this year coming, so yeah, it takes its toll after a while. So yeah, wear a mask using anything with a hardener in it. Yeah, sorry Dan, like I don't mean to beat on you, but yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, it's mainly the mask really, but I just thought I'd push the sanding block thing. You know, you end up with a pretty bloody good result with just using a long block, and yeah, the mask is a no-brainer. Whether it's you're just doing a little flick in somewhere or whatever, yeah, put the fucking mask on and change the filters every 8 to 10 hours.